It's time for a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer. Apparently, in the mainstream media land of today, Free Palestine now equates to anti-Semitism. They've been going this direction for the last 16 months or so. We've seen it coming. We've seen it we've seen it right in front of us, and it seems we have arrived. So we're going to break down that interview. We touched on it a little last week, but we need to look a little closer at this. This is the exchange at CNN. Dana Bash brings on the guests to drive this point home after the incident that took place in DC. They'll go over the incident again with you guys, and then they're going to tell you why anybody in the streets right now, it's not even a debate. It's not even a question that clearly Free Palestine means violence against Jews. I'm not making this up. This is what they are reporting right now on mainstream media. Your favorite neutral news network, CNN. Check it out.
We're getting new information about an anti-Semitic attack here in Washington, D.C. Sources tell CNN that the gunman who fatally shot 2 Israeli embassy staff members outside the Capitol Jewish Museum is expected to be charged with a hate crime, as well as other federal charges. These are the victims of that heinous crime. Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, a couple who was about to get engaged in Jerusalem. Here's what the suspect said moments after he killed them, allegedly. The couple was killed while they were leaving an American Jewish Committee event that was actually meant to aid people in Gaza.
Last night's session was on humanitarian diplomacy. The idea of how to work together to bring about peace and a better world. That's what had just ended when this murder came. And
do you love the spin? This is insane. This is like ridiculously like they think we're gonna fall for this. Well, I guess some people do, but this was the day when this horrible act happened. This is the day that we were actually discussing about how do we get aid to Gaza. It was about 16 months in. They're starving to death, literally starving to death in real time. And we just thought this was the day to start having the compassionate discussion. And then they had to go and interrupt it and ruin it. And now we can't talk about it anymore. See, you see what happens? You see what happens when you protest genocide, you don't get your aid to Gaza. So we were doing it. We were in the middle of it. And then we were interrupted by these horrible, disgusting, killer protesters. All right, well, go on. Tell us how bad they really are.
And gunned down Sarah and Yaron. Last night's event should have sent people home feeling hopeful, feeling that there is a brighter future ahead for all of us. And instead, we're reminded again of the awful reality that we live in still.
Deborah Lipstadt joins me now. She is the former U.S. Special Envoy for monitoring and combating anti-Semitism and, of course, one of the world's foremost experts on the topic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
First, just my general question is your reaction when you heard it.
I was not surprised. I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised. There is no Jewish institution virtually in the world, but certainly in the United States, that doesn't have security. If you're a Jewish young person, your normal is when you're going to synagogue, you're going to JCC, you're going to a film festival, that you're going to have to go through security, that you have to be taken care of. And it doesn't matter what your sentiments are about Israel, what your connection to Israel. If you're Jewish, you're a target.
Yeah, and obviously.
So the implication is that these 2 that were killed were Jewish. They're not. They were not Jewish. They were Christian Zionists working for the Israeli embassy. They were not Jewish. So this is what we call misinformation on purpose. It's disinformation or whatever information they want to coin the term. We're gonna use it appropriately, and that's what's happening right here. This is not accurate at all. Well, go on. Tell us what you're so sure of there.
Obviously, this was a Jewish event, and it's Jewish Heritage Month. And so that sort of begs one of the key questions I have for you, Ambassador, which is, you just heard the alleged killer saying, "Free Palestine." We hear that on the streets. We hear that on college campuses. And
now, from now on, when we hear it on the streets and on college campuses, we're going to equate it with violence, because that's what they've meant to do the whole time. So does anybody understand that this is absolutely 100% a psyop? 100%. That's not how the Free Palestine movement goes. And you don't yell that as you're getting handcuffed, and you don't wait around to get handcuffed so you can yell it out right at the camera. This entire thing is faked, and you should have at least a suspicion of it being fake. You don't have to be as sure of it as we are. We're sure about it because we've been covering this. We've been in the streets. Maybe Dana Bash hasn't paid attention for the last 16 months, so she doesn't know really how these protests work. We do, but you should at least be curious. It might be a psyop. Well, let's see how curious they are about any other discussion points in this dialogue, other than saying 100% factual that Free Palestine equals violence, and there's no other exception to that. It means you hate Jews and you want to kill them all.
there are a lot of people who have been worried that has been turned into a call to arms and a call to action and violence.
Yes.
Others claim that it's not. What do you think now that we have seen this?
I think there's no question, whatever its initial intent and whatever people were saying initially or meant it, it has become a call for violence, and not violence against Israelis, which is wrong, but violence against Jews. And anybody who tries to separate the two and try to say, oh, I'm just against Palestine, I'm just, against Israel's policies in Palestine or in Gaza, and I'm not anti-Semitic. This was anti-Semitism pure and simple. That he happened to have killed 2 Israeli staff members didn't matter. It was a Jewish event. They were targets.
This, as you know better than most, hardly happened in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. Things are happening so often that sometimes we become numb to it. To be honest.
Yeah, we become numb to it. So I'm sure you're talking about what's going on in Gaza, right? I'm sure that's what you imply. No, it's not. It's not at all. This is a twisted, backwards, Twilight Zone world in which we completely ignore an actual genocide and spend our days in this newsroom, this fake newsroom. And it's not just CNN. We're playing CNN right now, but this is MSNBC. This is Fox News. Wherever you get your balanced news from, and I'm going to watch a little CNN. I'm going to watch a little. I like to get all angles. Really? If you spend all day watching CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News and think you're getting a balanced version of actual happenings in this world, when all 3 of them are ignoring the thing that is starting to desensitize people that see it on their cell phones every single day for the last 16 months. That's what's going on. So you want to equate this story with hate crime, and you're gonna equate any situation like this. Everybody is responsible that has held a Palestinian flag. Everybody is responsible. We are all responsible for this behavior and the killing of these 2 Christian Zionists at the DC embassy. We're all responsible. Well, that's interesting, because I guess you would apply that, if that's the logic we're going with, that we're all responsible for the action of somebody, which we know is a psyop. But even if it wasn't, even if that really was a Palestinian activist who lost his mind, because that's not how Palestinian activists behave. That's not how they behave. So you could say, if it wasn't a psyop, you could say he lost his effing mind. Okay. But the fact that you're starting to equate this one action to every single person that gets in the street, not just in this country, but around the entire globe, we're all responsible. Then I assume when incidents like this, do you guys remember this one? This was in Miami last year. 2 Israelis were shot in Miami by a man who thought he was targeting Palestinians. If the man had not said this guy Brofman, he shot this. It was a father and son that were visiting from Israel in Miami, and he shot them 17 times. And he tried to kill him, and he told the police he saw 2 Palestinians. Now, let's say this shooter didn't say that, and he just said, I plead the fifth. I want to talk to a lawyer. I'm not going to say anything as you arrest me and cuff me. Do you think the media would have been concerned about Free Palestine and that 2 Israelis were probably shot because, as they say, hate crime? Were they ready to run the story until they looked a little closer? Damn it. He said he shot 2 Palestinians. He thought he was shooting 2 Palestinians. We can't run this. We can't run this story. Or if you want to be consistent with your messaging that one person's action represents an entire movement, then maybe this should also be set as a hate crime. And anybody holding an Israeli flag is a murderer of Palestinians because of what this guy did, shooting his victim 17 times. So there's obviously no consistency. There's no morality. There's no conscience. There's no nothing. There's just, how do we spin one story? How do we suppress another story? That's their job. I can't say, there is no other way around it. This is what we have to finally admit. If you haven't been willing to admit it yet, these news organizations, their job is to deflect, to suppress, to protect, to manipulate, to confuse, to capture, to use your emotions against you, and to keep you from learning actual news and actual information. Like this story, this girl being burned alive in Gaza. This should have been front page news. This story. She wasn't an accidental victim. She was targeted. Now, there was a discrepancy upon which girl it was. There were 2 girls, and I think there was 2 different stories on who it was. But at the end of the day, it does seem like she might have survived this. I think she did. If we're going with this, we looked into it a little bit. The girl's name was actually Hanin. There's another story out there that she had it was another girl that might have been mixed up. But this is the girl that did survive that attack. Her entire family didn't. They're all dead. But this girl somehow miraculously came out of there when she was being targeted to burn alive. Now she has burns all over her body. Her name is Hanin. This is the most up-to-date story I have on this that we can tell you right now, but this is ongoing. We might hear new information in the near future, but this is where we are on this. And all I can think of when I see this girl and I see this this deliberate attack to kill, as we know, they deliberately attack and kill children and women all day long. This is a regular daily occurrence that the IDF does in Gaza, not just in Gaza, but all over the West Bank. They do this in Lebanon. They do this everywhere. Okay, so what that image reminds me of is Vietnam. And I saw this, it kind of reminded me of the photography and the journalism that came out of Vietnam. And it's important that we have this discussion because I know most of you guys weren't around for that, but you might remember a very famous picture of a girl running away from being killed in Vietnam. And that human moment actually helped steer public opinion away from supporting this psychopath war that we were involved with. And it wasn't just this fringe group that was protesting. Once we saw the picture of the girl, it got more public support to end the war. And it actually did. Some say it did actually help end that war for real, not just the college protesters in the street. So Zedio commented on this. This is exactly what I was thinking when I saw it. And Zedio puts this out today. Why did burning girls matter in Vietnam, but not in Gaza? So she was called the Napalm Girl. That's the name of it's a very famous photo. I'll show it to you guys in a second. It shocked the world and helped end the Vietnam War. But a viral video of a child surrounded by flames and other similar images in Gaza can't even provoke a ceasefire. I mean, this is sad. Let's look at this. So this is the famous picture on the left. The name of the girl is Pan Ting Kim Punk Pook. I gotta get that. That's a hard one to pronounce. She runs screaming after the South Vietnamese army dropped napalm in 1972. And then on the right, this is where I think we're off on the description of the girl. They said her name was Ward. We found out that the girl's name might have been Hanin. So either way, we're talking about an innocent girl. So let's just understand it's an innocent girl who attempts to escape the flames after Israel bombed a school sheltering displaced Palestinians in Gaza. So why does one evoke public uproar to end the Vietnam War and the other doesn't do anything? Well, there's a very clear answer to this question. And that answer is the media learned their lesson from Vietnam. We lived through several illegal wars, occupations, illegal strikes through our lifetimes. We can go through every war. Through you got the 9/11, the Iraq War, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon. We got Libya, Yemen, Somalia. We got Yugoslavia before it was Syria, Serbia. I mean, time after time after time. But the Iraq War was the one that they were trying to pretend to broadcast, and we understood that. I remember thinking that at the time, like, we have more capability now of technology to show us real stuff going on the ground. Why do we see less? Why did we see less of all that than we did of Vietnam? Vietnam, they allow photography to come out. This is the mid 70s, early 70s, mid 70s. They were these very specific photographs and footage of what was actually happening there. And so the media didn't understand the power of those images because that was the first war actually broadcast on TV. Now we're talking about a genocide for the first time being broadcast on the palm of our hands. But Vietnam was the first war that was televised on the TV. And the media didn't figure out how to spin that yet. And they thought showing off the technology was going to get viewership. That's obviously, and they were right about that. They absolutely got viewership on the three main channels. Your CBS, your ABC, your NBC got massive viewership. This is way before CNN. But when CNN pops up in the 90s, and you got even before 9/11, you got this Kuwait war, and they're just not really showing us much of what's going on. It seemed like this very, very light, minimal thing that Bush 1 did. G.W. Bush Sr. put us through. There wasn't really much to talk about other than, just this little operation. It's not a big deal. The 9/11 happens, and it's like, we're going to go in, we're going to get those weapons of mass destruction. But they did everything they could to hide what was actually happening on the ground because they learned their lesson from Vietnam. Fast forward to today, and you can be sure that Dana Bash on CNN and all these other pundits, their job is not to report on this girl. Their job is not to have a human moment in Gaza. Their job is to manufacture human moments that pretend that Jewish Americans are the ones that need to be the most afraid right now for their lives. That is their job. And they're doing a good job at it too. I mean, you guys know what's going on. How do we get this message out to those that aren't willing to watch independent media, that still think they're getting a fair and balanced back and forth? They switch their CNN with their Fox News, with their MSNBC. They're getting a fair balance. No, they're not. If those news stations were acting in an honest way, guess what? You would see things like this reported honestly. Here is an actual report on the ground of what Israel does. They conduct tours of their genocide. This is real investigative reporting. You're not going to see this on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News. Check it out.
Tourists and school children are going on field trips in Israel, but not to museums. Instead, to watch the destruction of Gaza, known as resilience tourism in Israel, but as genocide tourism internationally.
So we were a mile and a half or so from 300,000 people who were being forcibly starved to death by the Israelis.
That was Matthew Ho, a former U.S. State Department official and U.S. Marine veteran, who recently took this tour in Sderot, where visitors used coin-operated binoculars to peek into Gaza.
An Israeli school field trip showed up, and these children, they're teenagers, they came from 2 hours away to come and watch the genocide.
The tours are also done in English for international visitors and are included in Birthright Israel trips for Jewish Americans and for all Israeli school children.
The population sees it as entertainment, where you have this complete dismissal of the Palestinians as human beings, but as part of their school curriculum.
And it doesn't just stop at the observation platforms. Reportedly, boat tours have been organized to view the destruction of Gaza, sparking outrage worldwide.
That's real journalism. That's what real journalism looks like. Again, another example of why the mainstream will not be honest. Because if they were, this report alone would change public sentiment about what goes on in Israel. How they educate their public, get from a very, very young age. They indoctrinate them to look at this genocide, this type of behavior to the Palestinian people as entertainment. They're obviously less than human. If there was real journalism going on, which that was, and shout out to that team that did that. If you could get that into the mainstream pundits' eyes, well, they know this is there. They're not stupid, and they're not just bad at their job. They're very good at their job. Again, their job is not to do that. That story should be on CNN right now. It's not. This story they should be playing this footage. This is how they treat animals. This is how they treat animals, particularly horses. Warning, animal abuse coming. So cover your eyes. But this is how the IDF treats horses, carrying flour to help feed hungry, starving people.
الله أخذ فراسه حرب قذيفة سجل فينا قذف الروح تعال بنزل وخلاص
That should be on every news outlet right now. How about this one? Israel chanting in the streets how they love raping Palestinian children and women. I'm not kidding. This is what they're chanting in the streets. This is recorded. This is on video. This should be on every news outlet. There's a reason it's not. It's not because they missed it. It's because they deliberately do not want you to see this. Disgusting. Absolutely effing disgusting. I can't look at these pundits' faces anymore. The Dana Bashes and the Rachel Maddows and the Anderson Coopers. I cannot look at their faces without the disgust of knowing that they know what they're doing. They wake up every morning knowing how they behave and that their job is not to let you know this information. They can't let you know this information or their entire narrative falls apart. They can't let you know that the entire Gaza Strip is gone. It's destroyed. It's been annihilated. I don't know if you can zoom in on this. I'm not able to on my image, but that's the strip. That's the Gaza Strip. Every bit of it is destroyed. Every bit of it. So you have 2.2 million people who, if they have not been killed already, if they not, all these numbers of 50,000 this and 70,000 that, 2.2 million people whoever has not been blown to bits, whoever is not missing limbs, whoever is not dying of depression and their entire family gone, they're starving to death. Not just victims of starvation, like it's a thing, it just happens. We are starving them. We are starving them to death, and there's nothing left of that strip. That is Gaza right now. That is an aerial shot today of the Gaza Strip. This should also be on every single news outlet. Every single one should be reporting on this, and we know why they are not reporting on this. And if you think that's bad, how about what Netanyahu is telling us he's going to do next? Because Gaza Strip is gone, and this just in yesterday, Israel warns that if countries like France and the UK recognize Palestine, it will unilaterally annex West Bank settlements and the Jordan Valley. Broad daylight threat. They're not even bothering to hide it. The reason they're not bothering to hide it is because they know they got full protection of the Western media. They can run their mouth anytime they want, and no one's going to hold them accountable, except us. We're the only ones. And I say we, I mean everybody in this space. We're all that's left here. And we have to deal with censorship, and we have to deal with being punished for having these conversations. That's how bad it is. And if you're in the streets, you have to deal with being arrested. You have to deal with losing your well-being, losing your college degree, as we saw last week from the graduation speeches, the one in New York City, NYU, losing your degree, losing job opportunities, Trump destroying the Harvard funding as a punishment for people speaking out against this total bullshit. Look, I know we usually on this show, when we do real fake news, we like to kind of have fun and mock their ridiculous interpretations of things and deliberate misdirects and theater debates they have about nothing. We have fun with that a lot. But today, that's not fun. It's not fun because we are letting you guys know how bad it is, and the way they behave actually affects this planet in the most disgusting way possible. So we have to keep doing what we're doing. And we have to not hesitate for a moment. When these stories break, we have to look into it. We can update you. Like, again, I say sometimes we don't get all the facts at once. It's hard. This shit's hard, guys. We have to look into stuff. We gotta update on stories when they break, see if we can gather new information. But we do the best and the most honest job we can do based on the amount of resources we have available. Because the people with all the resources, they're not doing. We have to do it somehow. So again, this is what our duty is. We appreciate all you guys supporting this, and our duty to continue doing this. That is a real fake news update. Not brought to you by Pfizer.